I am about to hold up something that is totally awesome, but you are probably totally unaware of. Told ya, it's Turrican. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Turrican series, there's a series of side-scrolling platform shooters that debuted in 1989 that became rather noteworthy across Europe among critics and gamers alike for its high quality and unique gameplay. Though outside of Europe, the games were often praised by critics, but often stayed under the radar, especially in the United States. I guess anything not having a connection with Japan somehow doesn't cut it here. You are tearing me apart, bias of the gaming community! Despite that, the series has quite a legacy, being Factor 5's first big hit before they made the Rogue Squadron series, making series creator Manfred Trenz from Rainbow Arts a household name. It has been ripped off a lot by big names like Duke Nukem and Ghostbusters. Not to mention it was on almost every home computer and console at the time, and some even question as to whether or not it helped influence the Sonic the Hedgehog series. And looking at entries like Sonic 3 and Knuckles, it's not hard to see why. So, as you'd expect, there's a lot to talk about, so I'm probably going to do some regular reviews in between parts every now and then. So with that, let's talk about the original Turrican. I'm going to be focusing on the 1990 Commodore Amiga version by Factor 5, but I'll discuss the other versions in a future installment. The graphics for the Commodore Amiga are really good. The tile sets are varied and have a very nice amount of detail. The sprites are very well drawn and the animations are absolutely fantastic. The movements are very gradual and hardly ever look choppy, even when slowing the footage down, which is a lot more than what I could say for sprite animations in most other games at the time. The soundtracks in these games have a strong reputation for being incredibly good. Does this one hold up to that reputation? Yes, yes, and more yes. Okay, while I don't consider this soundtrack to be the best in the series, it's still really good. I would say it's a lot better than the soundtracks that are often considered as noteworthy among the gaming community. For starters, there's a lot of variety in the compositions. Some songs are lighthearted, some are dark and ominous, some give you a real sense of adventure, some songs are slow, some are just insanely catchy, and others are fast and intense. Heck, sometimes it's even a mixture of a few. It also helps that the songs flow better and feel more like complete compositions than most video game music. The theme song, for example, is 4 minutes long, and it's constantly throwing in new sequences as well as changing the mood. And while the style of the music is more along the lines of electronic rock, techno, and hard rock, it flows more like an elaborate orchestral piece. While I can't say that this is the case with every song in the game, however I can say it's the case with Turrican 2, all of the songs are well composed and are also insanely memorable. Plus, it's just great to see a video game soundtrack that has more of a brain to it than most others. The controls are very standard for a home computer platform game of the time, but are very well done. Since I'm probably introducing this game to many console gamers, I feel the need to address the fact that up is to jump. But it actually doesn't come across as an annoyance in the slightest. How could that possibly be? Well, because you have so much freedom over your jump. Small jumps, huge leaps, little hops, and anything in between you can do in Turrican. You can even jump around platforms without it being anywhere near as troubling as it would be in most other games of the time. They even make the controls in games like Super Mario Bros. Feel stiff and constricted. As I mentioned before, the game is a platform shooter, though it's not like Contra where the focus is primarily on shooting everything that comes in your path. There's an equal focus on the platforming, and there's a lot of platforming. When you start up the game, you are told to shoot or die, but you're going to quickly come to the realization that doing one thing won't automatically eliminate the possibility of the other occurring. What I mean by that is, you're going to shoot, and you're going to die. When you get hit, you don't get any invincibility time, so you have to defend yourself accordingly, and thankfully your arsenal gives you several ways to actually do that. You have two primary weapons, a spread shot and a laser. Each one is effective in certain situations, but other situations will require you to take a different approach, so you'll want to switch weapons accordingly. In addition, you have the surround beam. You can use this when standing still. With it, you can take out anything within range, and you can upgrade it until it can stretch across the entire screen, though it downgrades every time you lose a life. You also have a limited supply of grenades, power lines, and landmines at your disposal, which you can fire using different keys on the keyboard. Finally, you can transform into an invincible wheel that shreds through enemies. Not to mention, you can shoot your regular weapons when in this mode, but you can't jump in it, so you can only get so far in it. That, and you can only use it 3 times per level or per life. So this may sound fairly standard, so you might be asking yourself what the big deal is. What made Turrican so revolutionary? How on earth does this game set itself apart? Well, it can all be summed up by mentioning a single element: the exploration. These levels are huge! Though unlike games like Metroid, you're not forced to look around in order to progress. You are given the choice. Most of the time you'll know exactly where you need to go, but have the option to go and look for power-ups, 1-ups, and diamonds, which can get you extra continues. You have the choice to play the stage the way you like. You can still just take the quick route, but the game gives you reason to go out and explore these environments, and when you do find something, it's insanely rewarding. As one would expect, not only does it help out tremendously, but it brings out a completely new dimension to the platforming, and it's just really fun. It's also awesome just to play this game again and find new things that you never noticed before. This can range from just a hidden corridor to even a completely new pathway, so you probably know what I have to say about the game's replay value. The variety is also great. There are 5 worlds, each have their own distinct identity. In addition, each stage tries something different from the stage preceding it. What's even better is that the progression is very logical. Every stage feels connected. Therefore, it feels like you're progressing through a big world, and when the scenarios are this varied, it really adds to the experience. I mean, one moment you'll be running through a dungeon, and the next moment you'll be flying through a vertical tunnel with your jetpack, and you never ask yourself, wait a minute, how did I end up here? While the game doesn't do it quite as well as Turrican 2, it still does it very well. This game is also quite heavy on the atmosphere, though thankfully it doesn't slow down the generally fast pace of the game, and it doesn't shove it in your face too much either. I also like how the game isn't that bright and lighthearted like most games were at the time. The game actually gets pretty dark, and even a little gory at times, but thankfully that's not overdone. And the game is also really good at building suspense. So is there anything wrong with this game? Well, no game is perfect, and I do have some small issues with Turrican. Remember when I said that the jumping is so good you can jump around platforms? Yeah, you're going to have to do that a lot in stages 1, 2, and 1, 3. Outside of those 2 stages, there isn't a whole lot of it at all, but in those 2 stages, it can get irritating. The second problem is only being able to use the gyroscope 3 times per life and per level. Some of the secrets can only be found by using the gyroscope mode, and if you only have 1 gyroscope left, you can get stuck and will have to wait until the timer goes out. Thankfully, it's really obvious when that's the case, so it's likely that you'll know beforehand, but still I feel it should be addressed. So, overall, the game is great, and really overlooked. You know when you're watching a low-budget movie or playing a low-budget indie game, usually one of the best things about it is that you can tell that the creators are putting a ton of passion into what they're doing? You get that even more here. Along with the great gameplay, high-quality programming, and presentation one would expect from both Rainbow Arts and Factor 5. I wouldn't exactly call it a masterpiece, but there are a lot of games that people praise to no end that I would not call masterpieces either. However, I would say it's at least on par with many of the highly regarded classics of the home consoles of the time. In the following year, a sequel was released, Turrican 2. Well, let's dig right in and see if it holds up.